And we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to go through the power rankings that were released this week, and I'll give you my thoughts on them. So let's get into that. Now, obviously, it's cut in half now because, now we're in the playoffs. So we'll go from 14 to number 1. So at 14, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Going into this postseason, they were probably on the lower side when it comes to the power rankings. Because obviously, listen, no disrespect to Mason Rudolph. He's one of the reasons why the Steelers, ended up making the playoffs. But obviously then no TJ Watt coming in against the Bills. It just, the Steelers had a lot stacked up against them here. And, again, they made it competitive with the Bills. They battled back from being down 21-0. It was 24-17 at one point. So it's not like they just didn't show up and got absolutely destroyed. It looked like that was what was going to happen early on in the game against the Bills, but they battled. But with no T.J. Watt, who's your best player, and going up against the Bills, who have kind of owned the Steelers recently. I know in the season opener a couple of years ago, the Steelers won, but the Bills have kind of been the better team since whenever these two teams go up against each other. But yeah, they're at 14, but we'll get into their head coach returning for next year. But yeah, they were ranked at 14. You got the Eagles at 13. If the Steelers weren't here, they'd be ranked last because, what was that? What was that performance against the Bucs? Really, what has been the performance, over these, the last, month and a half? It's been horrible. But, I see on social media the Niners broke them, and kind of looks like that because ever since the Niners beat them, they only won one game. And that came against the Giants, who they were trying to hand the Giants the game. They had Boston Scott and I think Zacchaeus, they ran into each other on the kickoff return. The Giants scored points out of that. The Adoree Jackson pick six. Slayton had a big touchdown in the game, a long touchdown, and he had another one in the actually no, not in that. Well, he had another touchdown, but I was thinking of the Rams game. He caught a long touchdown pass from Tyrod Taylor. But yeah, the Eagles against the Bucs, they couldn't tackle. Some of the worst tackling you'll ever see. And I'll say it again. The Cowboys, they were just letting people, run wide open. The Eagles, they just could not tackle. They couldn't tackle anybody. James Bradbury had a terrible game. There was another play where Rachaad White had the ball, and it was third down, and you looked like, oh, he's going to get tackled, well before the first down marker, and they just he breaks the tackle somehow and gets the first down. It was just unbelievable, and on both touchdowns. The Trey Palmer one and the David Moore one. What are the Eagles doing? Unless they just flat out gave up. They're like, we're done. We're not playing anymore. That was horrendous. And on top of that, quarterback didn't play well. They just didn't run the football. Again, DeAndre Swift had a great game when they played the Bucs last time, but they just did not use him. I don't know. Because when the Eagles got the ball to start on their first drive of the game, DeAndre Swift had a 9-yard run. You're like, okay, I guess they're going to lean on him, but it didn't happen. Devontae Smith showed up. Again, if the Steelers were not on here, the Eagles would be ranked last. And then you got the Dolphins. It was a tough situation for them having to go play in that weather. But yeah, Tua Tagovailoa didn't play well. You're missing a lot of your guys on defense. It was that was another tall task for a team. Was the Dolphins going into Kansas City? Again, Tyreek Hill catches that long touchdown pass, and you thought, okay, maybe the Dolphins will put up a fight here, but that was really it. So yeah, they ended up at 12. Browns at 11. Their defense, that was rough. That was rough against Stroud. But they actually did give up a lot of points on the road this year. Again, when they played the Colts earlier in the season. I think what was the final score? That it was like 39-38, something like that. It was a ridiculous score. Um, and then it happened here. I mean, C.J. Stroud sliced up that defense. Um, and obviously Flacco throwing the 2 pick sixes really, put the dagger in them in the game on Saturday. So, I mean, the Browns, we'll see what happens next year, but yeah, that was an ugly performance by their defense. And then Flacco, of course, throwing the 2 pick sixes. And then we get to the top 10. So the Rams are at 10. Yeah, I mean, out of the teams that lost this weekend, I mean, they were the team that, put up the best fight. They actually have the Cowboys ranked ahead of the Bucks and the Rams. Yeah, I don't know how that works. I mean, I feel like if the Cowboys are eliminated, you should put them at the bottom. I mean, at least with the Rams, they battled back. It looked like it was going to be a blowout, but, they kept the game close. I mean, Matthew Stafford played really well. They didn't run the football as well as they have been, the Rams, but, and then also Stafford getting hurt in the game too. Every time they had it, they were replaying it on NFL Network, and of course, when I turned it on, it was when Stafford got, hit, and his head slammed against the ground. That was an ugly play. But yeah, I mean, the Rams, out of the teams that lost, they were the team that put up the best fight. So yeah, they're at 10. The Bucks at 9. Again, I mean, I just talked about Baker Mayfield and his performance. I mean, we'll see what they do against the Lions this week. I mean, they played them already this year. We'll talk about it later in the show to finish off the show. But I mean, whatever happens, it's been a good year for Baker, and I mean, listen, they're going into Detroit. I would say they're playing with a little bit of house money. Why not? I mean, the Lions, they're the 3 seed. The Bucks, I mean, they already lost to the Lions. They've been kind of I mean, both teams have been inconsistent at times this year. I can't say they both have been, but let's see if the Bucks can maybe get some revenge here this weekend against the Lions. They got the Cowboys at 8. I mean, I'd probably rank them below both the Rams and the Bucks because they lost. I mean, their defense played. I mean, it's debatable on who played worse. You got the Browns defense that played awful, the Eagles defense, and you got the Cowboys defense. So it's one of those 3. Those are the 3 worst defensive performances of the weekend. And of course, then Dak Prescott had his 2 interceptions as well. Yeah, I mean, I'd put them lower. I mean, because at one point they were losing 48-16. I mean, of course, then they got to score those 2 garbage touchdowns to make the score more respectable. But yeah, the final score of the game really is 48-16. Yeah, just ugly performance by the Cowboys. I mean, that one came out of nowhere. Like the Eagles one, even though I picked them, I was still like, I mean, they haven't played great. They have not been good for a while. But that was kind of, I mean, not 32-9, but you kind of expected like they can probably lose this game. The Browns I thought was going to be more competitive. The Packers Cowboys game I thought was going to be more competitive. Well, at least like the Texans Browns game was competitive for a little bit, for a half basically. This game, I mean, it was before you blinked and it was 27-0 Packers. So I don't know what the Cowboys are going to do, man. It's going to be a long off season for them. So then at 7, you got the Packers. I mean, what a performance by them. I mean, Jordan Love's playoff debut. I mean, Aaron Jones is running the football. They're forcing turnovers. They're sacking Dak Prescott. I mean, what a great performance by the Packers. I mean, I just talked about Jordan Love's debut and Stroud's debut because they have the Texans at 6. Those are kind of interchangeable. I mean, it's debatable on who you could put. I mean, the Texans had 2 pick sixes. The Packers defense had 1. Darnell Savage had 1. So, I mean, both teams, did well in their playoff games. And we'll see what they do in their encore performances against the one. They're going up against the 1 seeds, both of them. So maybe they you know put on a nice encore performance. Who knows? Then in the top 5, you got the Chiefs. I mean, they pretty much, they dominated this game from start to finish. The Dolphins really, I mean, again, there was one play to Tyreek Hill for the touchdown. Other than that, there really wasn't. The Chiefs had this game won. I mean, their defense did well. Mahomes had a good game. I mean, not really much to say about them in their matchup against the Dolphins. And then the top 4, you got the Lions. I mean, Jared Goff played well. The defense got to Stafford. And now we'll see, when they play against the Bucs this weekend. And the top 3 is the Bills, the 49ers, and the Ravens. I mean, can't argue with it. The Bills, they did take their foot off the gas pedal, and the Steelers were able to come back and make it a 1-score game, but then they got that crucial touchdown drive. Obviously, again, missed tackles. I mean, Minka Fitzpatrick, you had Shakir, and then he somehow gets away, and he scores a touchdown. Josh Allen played turnover-free football, and if he could do that against the Chiefs, that game, I cannot wait for it. I really can't. And we're going to talk about it later in the show. Yeah, I mean, I can't really argue the Bills being at 3. Again, I feel like you could flip-flop the Lions and the Bills. Yeah, and then the top 2, of course, you got the 49ers and the Ravens, who will play this weekend. We'll see how they do in their first playoff games this weekend. Of course, they both play on Saturday. The Texans will be playing the Ravens, and then, of course, you got the Packers playing the 49ers. And like I said, we'll take a quick peek at these games. Well, not really a quick peek, but we'll take a look at these games. We're halfway through the week, because I haven't really talked about these upcoming playoff matchups. But yeah, this will be the first time to look at them. Because we got rematches really for all of these games. Three of the 4 from the regular season, and then one of them is just from the past. So that's kind of how that segment's going to be to finish off the show. But yeah, that's it for the power rankings. Like I said, I feel like the Cowboys, they should be lower just because they lost. I mean, I feel like it's weird you're having a team that got blown out ahead of teams that won play. Well, the Rams didn't win, but the Rams again put up a better fight than the Cowboys did in their playoff loss. So I'd put them ahead. Because if you're ranking the teams based on just strictly the playoffs, I'd put the Cowboys lower. But now if you're talking about overall for the season, yeah, I mean the Cowboys are going to be ahead of both of those teams. But I think just because of how they showed up in the first round and getting knocked out, being one and done, they should be lower. Should they still be in the top 10? Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that. But I don't know. That's just my opinion on it. But before we go into our second break of the show, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we're going to talk about Mike Tomlin and him basically announcing that he intends to return to coach Pittsburgh next season for the 2024 season. And I'll give you my thoughts on that. So, once again, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.